1. How do sociological methods contribute to our understanding of social reality? Discuss. Mill's concept of abstracted empiricism posits that empirical studies mostly follow a set pattern of collecting data using conventional styles of collecting them, which are then codified. This is a much accepted style that is ritualistically adopted by almost everyone to follow the set rules for collecting data. For example, most studies involving the collection and analysis of public opinion look into the aspect of how public opinion is mapped and collected as data, but they ignore the process of getting the data or the process by which public opinion is formed. In the entire game of methods, there is also an attempt to mislead about what is to be studied. However, Mill's work is limited by being confined to the United States only. Certain key problems like class consciousness, false consciousness, and conceptions of status and class have not been translated, adding to the problem of studying generalized issues rather than looking into specific areas of study. Thus, studies of World War II will discuss and describe social processes that do not include origins or causes. The sociologist, who should be concerned with society and its issues, becomes more involved with the methods to be used and what can be studied by these methods. In other words, the method becomes a limitation. At the same time, there is an effort to extend the sociological method to other fields. Experts in the method are not only specialists in social philosophy but also try to further the specialization within the social sciences through methodological inhibition, which is done by the institute where this method is put into practice. Paul F. Lazarsfeld has explained how abstracted empiricism can be used as a style of work and regards the sociologist as the methodologist of all social sciences. Thus, empiricism becomes the hallmark of sociology as compared to philosophy or epistemology. Rather than thinking about why things happen, sociologists try to focus on what is happening and how it is happening. Sociology uses its expertise to talk about a particular topic through the use of the sociological method and thus converts knowledge into empirical language. This is done by moving from the history of institutions and ideas to the concrete behavior of people. And lastly, to emphasize contemporary social events as a result, sociology remains empirical, tied to specific situations and preventing broad generalizations. Abstracted empiricism tries to overcome the issue of too much specificity and lends a more scientific character to sociology. 2. Explain the perspectives of Mills and Bauman on understanding social reality. Bauman, the sociological eye. The sociological eye is the proposition put forward by Bauman about developing a sense of analyzing what is going on around us from a more critical and evaluative perspective. Once we develop a sociological perspective, we tend to get a more rational view of things that happen around us. Thus, supposing there are riots then, rather than assigning blame arbitrarily based on our biases, a sociological perspective would allow us to get to the root causes, such as identifying causes such as economy and class, rather than simply speaking in terms of ethnic or race characters. Thus, a sociological perspective enables us to get nearer to the truth. It can be surmised that sociology teaches us the art of living. The study of sociology is expected to be scientific as the activities and the products are useful to all. Mills, Philosophies of Science. There is confusion regarding the relationship between science and the social sciences, as the former is supposed to be objective and rigid in its procedure and the latter is supposed to be more open and liberal in its application. However, social analysts have avoided rigid procedures by using sociological imagination in their work. Method has to do, first of all, with how to ask and answer questions with some assurance that the answers are more or less durable. Quote, "One who has mastered method and theory becomes a self-conscious thinker." For a classical social scientist, methods are methods and theories are theories, they are not autonomous domains. First-hand information about the problem and situation is what makes a scientist a working social scientist. Scientists do reflect on the theory and method used in their studies. There can be no shortcut understanding of methods or methodology. A sense of the problem and the desire to solve it are what is required. Efforts are also being made to learn advanced methods and the scope of close interaction between method and work. When we talk of empirical verification, one has to talk about facts and how to put ideas and facts together. It is more important to know what needs verification and how it is to be done. Classical research uses detailed expositions and macroscopic conceptions to design small empirical studies. Microscopic studies or deduced concepts are not required in the classical social sciences. The problems addressed rest upon the methods, theories, and values. What is required is more of an understanding than a solution. For an effective sociological approach, the problems addressed should include various public issues and should bring out the causal connections between the issue and the social structure. The values that are challenged and the issue at stake, etc. 3. Explain the perspective of Mills and Bauman on the relationship of sociology with other disciplines. Mills, Types of Practicality and the Bureaucratic Ethos. The main problem in the social sciences is objectivity and perspective. Social issues become pertinent to be studied only when they are studied without any conflict of values, a position that is almost impossible to achieve as most people carry unconscious biases that they are aware of. Openness to accepting a multitude of opinions may also be seen as an aspect of the sociological mode of thinking. Social scientists work within the framework of their context, accepting society as it is. The social scientist is also a member of society and is socialized into a set of norms and values that may be difficult to transcend but that may be possible to recognize. Thus, social scientists need to be aware of the political implications of their work. If not knowingly, the social scientist is working for the bureaucratic setup to maintain ideological justification. The political meanings and administrative uses of social sciences have seen a shift and have been overshadowed by new manipulative methods that can be termed bureaucratic social science. Thus, social research may be used as a political and economic tool to legitimize a particularly profitable enterprise. Thus, abstracted empirical research can be useful if conducted by an institution with the necessary funds. As the work progresses, corporate control over the division of labor will be established. Thus, institutions with power can train sociologists with the tools and techniques to do research without the philosophical grounding that implies ethical and moral evaluation. The issue is that, given the possibility of expropriation, social science should be considered a publicly responsible enterprise. There are chances that researchers lose their individuality while working in a bureaucratic setup. The utilization of social scientists for the enhancement of bureaucratic purposes has limited the intellectual and philosophical scope of the discipline. The control that the bureaucracy has over the values and ideas of precisely anything that can be thought of is also contributing to its control of history. The bureaucratic control over sociological research is thus counterproductive to intellectual growth as well as social justice. Mills, historical applications. Looking at social transformations over time and the history of social institutions is where sociology intersects with history. For example, a sociologist in India would be interested in the evolution and past of an institution like caste. There is also interest in studying the social life of particular historical epochs, like, for example, Victorian England or 17th century France. There is no doubt that there are problems with the method used. And so, saying that history can be distorted is not wrong. Thus, the correctness of historical facts is important. The task of the historian is of utmost importance. The work of historians is important as it contains all aspects of social sciences, and in all social studies, one needs to have a historical view of the problem or the area. But there is still a need for historical materials even if we are not doing comparative studies. History adds the required depth to sociological analysis and provides a backdrop to current social situations. 4. How does sociology look at reality? Discuss. Mills, the human variety. The historical realities tell us that there are a variety of social systems and social structures, and the first and foremost task in comparing them is to keep an unbiased attitude. A sociological perspective puts all societies on the same scale in terms of values and only grades them in structural terms like complexity and demography. Historically, social scientists have been more concerned with economic and political institutions, which have provided useful insights into the workings of society and its institutions. In contemporary terms, social structure is seen as a political state. Contemporary sociology cannot extricate itself from the study of the nation-state and how the power of the nation-state permeates society. In studying society, the sociologists also concur with the social anthropologist, whose task is also to study society. Economists study social relationships, and contemporary economists are deeply embedded in the social relations, norms, and values of society and thus have similar interests as sociologists. Political scientists also study society and its power relationships, and in contemporary times there is a lot of convergence between sociology and political science. It is understood that the variety in social life has enabled the social scientist to divide the work. There is mutuality among disciplines, though there might be disagreements, as well as a respect that all disciplines have originated in their own way. Bauman, Values and Action. Values originate from culture and the received wisdom of generations. A person is more likely to be affected and undergo a change in values by someone having more authority, either personally or through an institution, for example, a teacher in school or a political institution. The more legitimacy a source has, the greater influence it is likely to have. Traditional values have a legitimacy that is time-tested. The defense required for new values to take root among traditional values is at stake. Persons with charisma can only forge ahead with new values in comparison with ordinary people initiating something new and getting it accepted. Thus Max Weber has identified three types of authorities: the traditional, the charismatic, and the legal rational. The third type, the legal rational one, are those who have legal rights and a rational and legitimate source to deliver their authority. For example, a person has to prove his or her ability to become a judge in a legal court. These three types are only analytical constructs, and different types of effects can easily overlap in real-world situations.